Hey, everybody, welcome to today's show. I am really excited about our guest today. We are talking with a franchise financing expert who has helped entrepreneurs secure funding since 2006. And she really understands what it takes to turn your business ownership goals into approved deals. In other words, how to buy a franchise and actually get funded. Marianne Mckinney is the owner of Alliance Star Franchise Financing and has been helping franchisees secure commercial financing, guiding them through the entire loan process from pre-qualification to final funding. And she's even able to provide a plan and help those who don't qualify to improve their future qualification opportunities. She has an impressive 97% approval rate and has secured over 25 million in loans annually. Her expertise includes commercial loan structuring, financial modeling, risk evaluation, business planning, and 5-year financial projections. She works closely with franchisees to tailor financing strategies that align to the owner's specific goals, whether working with startups, acquisitions, remodels, equipment, or working capital. And she dives in with a hands-on approach. So, Marianne, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So this is really impressive what you've been doing. So I'd love to hear, like, 22 loans in 3 weeks, 138 loans within the first year that you got approved at the company you were working with them. Tell us about your backstory.
Well, when I started, I only knew a little bit about finance, but it was just enough to intrigue me. And at the time, I had a child that was still living at home with me and had just gone through so many different changes. And I just said, Lord, I know I can do this, but you're going to have to provide it for me. And back then, you did not have LinkedIn or different sources to find an email. You had a phone number. And I kept calling different people, and finally I got through my first account, and I got through what's called a gatekeeper. That's what they called them back then. The woman who you had to get through to talk to the CFO or whoever was in charge. And I got this first account. I got through, and they gave me the opportunity to show them what I could do. So the first month was 22 loans approved. The first year was 138. And I still have that same account. And to this day, that was my first account, and I'm still on that vendor list. But it's something you have to earn every single day. But I try to set myself apart. I taught myself what the banks were looking for, and it worked. And now I work with different banks across the United States. I have a good relationship. I know which loan to submit to which bank. And I always remind my banks that I have other banks, because I want them to always be aware that I don't have to work with just them. I can work with others. And that makes the competition good. And that gives me an edge to be able to get the loans approved.
So tell us a little bit, because you're mentioning that you're working with multiple banks.
Yes.
Now, you're packaging loans.
Yes.
How's that different from brokering?
The packaging is what sets us apart, because there's a lot of people that can be a broker, but I've gone to a lot of conventions. I've gone to a lot of corporate meetings over 20 years, and I do meet other brokers. A broker, it works with a bank. They submit the loan request to the bank, and they work with the bankers and the underwriters to make sure the loan's approved. But the packaging is what we do that's different. So we do start with a free process with everyone. I have a phone call them to ask normal questions to pre-qualify them, and then we submit them a bunch of information they have to provide to us with 3 bank forms. And then I would prepare that. If I get them in with the bank, I get what's called a letter of intent. And that's my in with the bank to know which bank I'm going to set them with. But then is when the loan packaging comes through. Then they will receive another final loan request checklist of information that the bank requires for that loan request to be packaged perfectly, to include everything that they've got to have. And that also includes a bunch of bank forms. Well, 90% of the people do not know how to fill these forms out, because they've never experienced it, because it's new. So we'll stay on the phone with them and actually fill out every question of the forms with them. So all they ever have to do is provide us information on the checklist. Then when they secure a location, 90% of people wouldn't know how to prepare a business plan, wouldn't know how to prepare the budget projections. They don't know what the bank is looking for to get a loan approved. So what's what we do that I haven't found anybody else that will do? We will prepare their budget projections. We work with a bank to prepare the project cost to make sure that every category is included. We prepare their business plans. They have to have assumptions. They have to have other documented information. We know what the bank is looking for numbers. We know what the bank is looking for with the location in the business plan. So first off, we start with the free process. We get the information from them. If I see something that I know is a red flag that's going to get them denied, I'm going to already have it fixed. We're going to talk about it. We're going to structure it. They're going to find out a different plan, because I will not begin submitting anything to a bank unless it's structured properly in what they want to hear and what they want to see. And then when we do get the customer an LOI, if we can, and if they like it, and if they like me and they choose to proceed, that's when we start that loan packaging. And I want to get everything in their folder packaged before they go find a location. Because when they find a location, they have no idea the stress they're going to have, because that's when we have to have everything packaged in order. And then when they get a location, well, that's when our research comes in. That's when we've got to prepare the budget projections. We've got to look up their traffic counts on their demographics. We got to do a lot of research, because we've sold the concept, we've sold the franchisee. Now we have to sell the location. And that's just something that we know how to do. And so all these meetings that I've gone to and all these conventions, and I meet a lot of brokers, are like, we're not going to do that. That's just too much time and too much work. And I'm glad they don't, because that sets me apart, because they can't go find me anywhere.
So why franchises? Like, what was it about this type of work that was, intriguing to you, that drew you in?
I like the SBA loans. A lot of people frown upon them because they think they take too long, but they don't take too long if you have someone like me, because I'm going to make sure we get everything. It's going to be packaged. When it submits to the bank is not going to put your loan aside because they're waiting on something. And that's, I think, would be a long delay, is that people get scared of that. But I knew better, and I knew with my assistants and the technique that we do, it's a quick process. The banks I work with are called SBA Express lenders. And that means that they've already been given the authority to approve a loan on the behalf of the SBA. Well, when you submit a loan to the SBA, you have a 10-year loan. You could have longer terms. Your interest rate is always going to be, whatever the prime is, plus a fixed rate, but you don't have to worry about refinancing it, because you're going to get a good interest rate and a computer is going to keep up with it, the interest rate, and it can go up and down. But the SBA loans lend to people who might not could all get a loan. That's what makes it so easy. People are scared of it. I'm like, why? It's not hard. But it doesn't matter if it's an SBA, if it's a conventional, whatever it is. When you submit that loan request to the bank, you need to think of this company or lenders and banks as kind of like an assembly line. If you can imagine an assembly line, and let's just picture chocolates going down an assembly line, of just going down the line. If that chocolate is okay, it'll get in the box. But if it's not, they're going to throw it away. Well, same thing for a loan. When the loans are packaged like a book on an assembly line, they go to the banker, they go to the underwriter. If you have a question, or you have an object like an LLC, an EIN, or even a question that the underwriter sees that's not answered, he or she is going to set that loan off that assembly line, and they're going to start on another one. Well, when are they ever going to get back to yours? You don't know. That's the difference between us. When my loans submit to that bank, it's packaged perfectly. As I go through packaging it with them, and I see something like a questions come up that I know that bank is going to stall on, we get it addressed, we get it answered, we get the information. And the job is, you got to get that loan approved in a quick amount of time, because that landlord is not going to be happy very long. They're going to want that lease signed quickly. But that's the difference. People have a bad object in their head. Oh, SBA is going to take a long time. It doesn't. You don't have it packaged right. If you have it packaged right and you have it complete, it's an assembly line. It's a factory of loans and they go through the process easy.
That is a fabulous analogy. While you're saying chocolates, don't get me wrong, I'm a chocolate lover. I'm
Everybody
imagining
gets,
well, it's something we can all understand, right? So you have a
yeah.
visual for that. But recently, I've really become a Krispy Kreme donut lover. And so what I see is the little round donuts coming down the assembly line before they get coated in the icing. I just love them. So it's making me hungry just thinking about it. So why do you think lenders really like franchise loans?
Well, they like franchises because franchises, banks are all about numbers. If the numbers work, that makes them feel easy. That makes them feel secure because it's all about risk. So when you have a franchise concept that may have, let's say, 50 or more locations, and they've been in business for a few years, they have to have a franchise disclosure document every year. That franchise disclosure document lets them know how many defaulted stores they've had, what are their numbers? Are they secure or are they high risk? So with a franchise, that's why it's so important to the concepts themselves to do their due diligence and make sure that their concepts are successful for the franchisee. Because again, we all answer to someone. If we do a good job, we can succeed. If we don't, we won't. But with the banks, with the franchise concept, they have that good, strong historical data or they have bad. So if we have the good, strong historical data, the franchisee is going to reap the reward for it. Number one, they'll get the loan. Number two, they'll have a lower down payment because the down payment for an SBA loan can be anywhere from 10 to 25% down. It is based on a lot of things, but the majority of the basis is on the concept. How many successful stores? Do the numbers work? Because that gives the bank the assurance that the concept itself works. Now we know how to prove if the client, the franchisee, can make it work. Do they have substantial income or do they have substantial worth to give the bank all the assurance? But the concept itself, the franchise itself, that gets your foot in the door. That's about 50 to 60% of the assurance you're going to get a loan approved.
It seems too, you mentioned this just a couple moments ago, selecting location. It seems too like location would play just a really big part in that. So
Yeah, it does. And that's another part that you're paying for when you sign an agreement for a franchise territory to become a franchisee of the concept that you choose. You have to trust them. You're paying for their expertise. They are not going to put you in any location that with their knowledge you won't succeed. So that they're going to make sure it has a traffic count. They're going to make sure it has the demographics. They're going to make sure it has everything to pull that traffic into your store. They're not going to put you in any place if they don't think that you're going to succeed. And that's the assurance of a franchise, one of many things. And it's just, why would you not want one?
So when you see a franchise, like I love Subway, and everywhere that I've ever lived, I always know where that closest Subway is.
What is?
Yeah, and I very rarely ever seen any of them close, but there are occasions when, I've gone back and suddenly they're gone. What do you think, contributes to that? What would cause something like that? Because you mentioned defaults on
Yeah.
loans earlier. So I'm just
A lot,
curious.
a lot, a lot of the franchises that you see that'll have defaults is where owner's not being present. And that's the bottom line. If you own a franchise and you depend upon someone else to run your store, it's probably not going to be ran appropriately. An owner needs to be present. So a franchise can have good numbers, they can have a good success rate, and they can find you a good location. But if that owner doesn't have the investment of his time and his knowledge, I don't care what brand it is, it's not going to succeed. You have to make an investment not only financially, but with your time and your interest. Because if you totally rely on someone else, it's not going to work. I don't care what brand it is.
So when you talk about the business plan, you mentioned, helping with that,
Yes,
being
we do it
alongside the
all.
client as they're doing that. Is that something you're addressing inside the business plan, the presence of the owner or the staffing for the location and what that's going to look like and how it will be managed?
Yeah, we do everything. So when we prepare the budget projections is the basis of the business plan as well. So when I or some of the people we prepare the budget projections, we have to go up and look and see what is the average, employee salary for that state. What are the payroll taxes? What are that? So that determines with the bottom line of the net profit how much we know what the bank is looking for. But that also determines how many employees can they start off with. What can that store with the financials we do, what can they possibly start off with? And I get a lot of franchisees and you'll ask them the question, well, how many employees do you want? And they'll go 20. I'm like, well, you might get to that one day, but you're not going to present a bank 20 because if you do, you're going to scare them to death. Because again, banks are conservative. You better give them what they're looking for. And if these people don't know because they've never experienced it before. So I will start them off very conservatively with a number of employees, maybe a general manager, but the rule is I will tell them you're going to have to be in that store daily. You're going to have to oversee that store. It doesn't say SBA wants an owner present daily in the store, but they don't say what are your hours, what are your duties, what are your titles. But they know, and the bank knows that if an owner is going to be present, then sometime during that day, he or she is gonna know, is that store being ran efficiently before you actually get the final numbers. But with the business plan, so we do the budgets first, but then with the business plan, we not only are selling the client in the business plan, we're selling the product, the franchise in the business plan, but then the location. And we just had a recent concept going in not far from where I live, a couple of hours. And people were like, why would they put that there? Well, with our research, we found that a big company is putting in a data center there and going to have 4,000 employees down the street. Well, the concept really, they didn't know that. So in the business plan, we presented that to the client. She said the concept came back on her and was like, why would you want this? We gave you 3 options, but this we thought was your lease. They give you 2 or 3 locations. And she said, because this company's coming down the street. But the business plan we had told her and told the concept, and it's research. You've got to show in that business plan, are there subdivisions coming in? Are there hospitals? What are the other employees in that area? Because your majority of people around the concept are going to be employees at other businesses. You want to talk about what is going to draw people to your concept because you're selling that concept to the bank. You're selling the location. It all goes together, and we put in beautiful pictures of the location, documented employee list, documented companies. If there's anybody competition, you do have to list competition. You want to tell the bank everything, but we just know what they're looking for. And I do not give a bank anything that I know will get someone turned down. We'll structure it, we'll fix it before we ever get there.
I saw some pretty big name logos on your website in terms of, industries and companies. And so what are some of the top industries that, are being funded right now?
You would think that the smoothie concept would be kind of cold, but it's not. Smoothies are hot. Ice cream, different ice creams. Ice creams are hot. Still the hamburger, your fast food is still hot. And it's really neat because some of them that's been around since I've been in this are still going strong. And so I tell people, some people come to me and they'll have a new concept, and they want to start. Well, that's exciting because you've got something new that's going to draw in the customer. But also, if you have a concept that's been around you've heard it your whole life, don't be scared of it either because it's proven. When I drive by something and I've seen that sign, I don't have to wonder what it is. I know what it is and I'm going to drive in it. The bottom line is, what is their financial data? Are their stores good? Does a bank want them? If a bank doesn't want the concept, you don't either.
Oh, I like that. That's fantastic. So what do you think, like 2 things that somebody should be thinking about, like your top 2 things they should be thinking about if they want to buy a franchise and they're just kind of listening right now and like, this is a great idea. 2 things.
Look at how many locations they have. If you have someone that's just starting out and they have below 50 locations, then you're going to be a very strong applicant to get that. You can get the loan, but the applicant is going to have to be stronger. That means they're going to have more money in the bank to show the bank not only do they have the down payment, but that they have more money in case that business needed help. They can give the bank the assurance that that loan payment's going to be made, that the rent's going to be made, that all the bills are going to be made. Because again, the bank doesn't have the assurance of the historical data. And that's what they're looking for. So a lot of times people will call me and they may not have enough cash for a down payment for a concept of 50 or below, because your down payment's going to be higher. You're probably going to have a 20 to 25% down payment. Where if you have a concept that's got 70 to 100 locations or more, you're probably going to, if you've got a good credit score of 750 or greater, and you got some kind of industry experience, whether it's, did you work at an ice cream place in high school? Did you ever work in a retail place? It doesn't have to be much, but you have to give the bank the assurance that you're going to be able to go forward and get a loan. But if you have a concept that doesn't have a lot of locations, and if I can't help them when I talk to them on the phone and I find out that they just barely have enough money for a down payment, or I see other things that I know is not going to get them a loan, I'm going to go ahead and just tell them, hey, if you have equity in a home, go get your home equity line of credit and see if you can get it open for that. If you can't, then we can go borrow against a home line of credit, because that's acceptable with the SBA. They can go get their money from that. But you're going to have a harder time getting a loan with a concept of lower locations. And the more locations, the smaller your down payment, the easier it's going to be to get you a loan. Because again, it's the historical financial data. If the numbers work, everything works. If they don't work, you can still get a loan, but you better have someone like me telling you what you got to do to go with that bank and get it. Because if you go in your local bank and you just walk in there and say, I want a loan, and they see all that, the banker can't tell you why you got denied, because he's going to be loyal or she's going to be loyal to the bank. But I don't work for the bank. I work with them. And you're going to know up front what you need to go do in order before you ever present a loan to a bank. And I had a conversation with a guy this morning, and I'm not for sure if he'll proceed with me. I sent him the information for the free process and stay on the phone with him an hour, but I told him so much stuff. He said, I just don't know that I would go with anybody else, because I would have never known any of this. And then that's part of what I do. If I can't help you, and if you want to go somewhere else, you're at least going to have the knowledge when you leave the phone from me to have more of a knowledge of what you're getting yourself into and how you need my help.
Oh, I love that. So you're giving education and providing value, right? And then they're looking at, well, why would I ever go anywhere else? That's fantastic.
Because they can't go find me anywhere. I'm not out there.
So what happens, what happens if somebody comes in and you're looking through everything, and you're like, they're just not quite ready yet. What does that look like for them when they are working with you?
Yeah, and that again goes back to that free process. I never accept a cent from anyone unless I can get the information and submit it to the bank. But I won't even start getting the information if I have that phone call and I know up front you don't have enough money for the down payment. Your credit score may be too low. Just different things that I hear that I know that are qualifications. You don't have to own a home to get a loan. You can rent an apartment, but you've got to have everything else going in your favor. So a credit card debt, my goodness, some people come to me and they'll have a mound of credit card debt. And I'm like, well, there's your first red flag, because banks hate credit card debt. Your interest rates are high. You're never going to pay them off. And that's going to get you denied. And a lot of people, too, with student loan debt, they'll say, well, it's deferred. Well, okay, but you're still responsible for it. And it may come due one day. And that's a debt that you have to consider. But it's a debt to income ratio. So we have a form, and then there's a percentage that you have to add up all of your income. You have to add up all of your debt, and there's a percentage. That percentage is also going to tell me what are my chances to get this person a loan. But if someone comes to me and I know they don't have the down payment, they're close, I'm going to say, Well, you can go get a gift letter from someone, like a family member. So if you had a 20% down payment, you could go get half of that as a gift letter. You cannot go get a personal loan. If you go get a personal loan, you're going to get denied. A banker's not going to tell you that. You can go get a loan against your home equity, or you can borrow against a 401k. That is the only two ways you can get a loan. You can get a gift letter from someone for half the down payment. But if someone comes to me and say, "Oh, my mom and dad are going to give me all the down payment," I'm like, no, that's not going to work, because that tells the bank you personally do not have any skin in the game. That's a red flag, and that's a high risk. Because if that applicant, that franchisee, has an investment of their own money, then that gives them the assurance that store is going to work. But when you have someone give you everything and you have no personal investment, that person is more likely, if things got hard, to walk away. And things like that they need to know about, because a bank cannot tell them that, but I sure will.
So there is a tremendous story that goes along with packaging these loans up, and it's
Yes.
significant investment of your time. But I imagine this process that you've carved out and the way that you do things is why you have such a high acceptance rate for your loans, and why you've had so many loans go through successfully year after year after year. So
Yes.
that's fantastic. Well, Marianne, thanks for coming on and being our guest. Would you tell everybody how they can connect with you?
Yes. Well, number one, my phone number is 870-740-7277. I'm located in Arkansas. The voice can give that away, but the accent really works for me because people never forget it, and I love that. The second way is I have a website. It's ASFF at inc.com. And there's a way that once they visit it, they can also send me a direct link. But you can just send me an email. It's my first name, Marianne, Marianne. There is a period. Initial A is in Apple, S is in Sam, F is in Frank, F is in Frank at gmail.com. So that's Marianne.ASFF@gmail. And I'll get back to you. We'll start the free process. I'll advise you. We never accept a cent unless I can get a LOI from a bank, and if you like me. If you do, then we proceed. If not, we're just friends.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Pop out onto Marianne's website, click the schedule an appointment button, put in your details. She will get back to you, or give her a call at her 877 number, or drop her an email. And until next time, we'll see you then.